Welcome back. The strike that nearly crippled the island of Puerto Rico ended overnight. At issue, the privatization of the Puerto Rican-run telephone company. The rioting is over now, but the tensions are still running high. My guest today, Rutgers professor Luis Martínez-Fernández and Gerson Borrero. He is a columnist for El Diario La Prensa. Welcome to you both. Gerson Borrero, you particularly blame the governor for this rioting. Why?
Absolutely. I think the governor is being really thick-headed, stubborn. In a democracy, you're supposed to listen to the people. You're elected for a certain period of time, but you're supposed to listen to what what your constituents say. 70% of the Puerto Ricans on the island oppose the sale of the Puerto Rican telephone company. So you have a 30% support, and it's growing on the other side. So I think that you have to take a step back. He has refused to listen to not only the strikers, but to the general populace. He's even refused to listen to half of his party, the Progressive New Party, who has already indicated to him that we don't like this proceeding. And then you have a governor who takes off for his beach house, the governor's beach house, while the strike is going on. Puerto Rico is in chaos, and he's over vacationing. I mean, this is really irresponsible on his part.
Luis, 70%, over 70% of the Puerto Rican population does not want this privatization. Why is it happening?
Well, there's no doubt that there's widespread opposition to the sale, and I'm pretty sure it has to do with some deep wounds in the history of Puerto Rico, and we must remember what the meaning of this sale is as far as the broader process of the struggle for self-rule in Puerto Rico over the past 100 years.
Now, a lot of Americans, a lot of people living in the United States don't know what Puerto Rico is. It's not exactly a country. It's not exactly a state. What is it?
No, we are a nation. We're a country. It's just that we have been a possession of the United States, who invaded the Puerto Rican shores in 1898, while we were in a transition period to gain an autonomous government from Spain. So we were a colony of Spain for 400 years, and then a colony of the United States. This July 25th, it'll be 100 years. And that's a good point that you bring up. Most Americans don't know that this country, our country, has a colony in the Caribbean. At this day and age, in 1998, the United States has possession of a territory of an independent people.
Well, it's referred to as a commonwealth. You don't buy that description?
I don't buy that. No, of course not. It's a colony. The Estado Libre Asociado, the free associated state, is this idiocy that Luis Muñoz Marin came with, who was an independentista, by the way. So Americans must understand.
You're for making Puerto Rico totally independent, a new country.
I think that Puerto Ricans should have the right to determine.
Well, they have that right. There are votes, and every time it's voted. Well, they just had an election.
No,
and independence always gets less than 10%.
But I think that's another point, and I'm glad you brought it up. The fact is that it's only the United States government, the Congress and the President, who can authorize a real plebiscite. That's what's pending right now, the Young Bill, which passed Congress and is now in the Senate. It may not see the day of light.
Luis, haven't these plebiscites already allowed the Puerto Rican people to speak their mind as to status?
Well, they have voted, in fact. There was an earlier plebiscite in 1967. There was one in 1994. The problem with these previous consultations of the people of Puerto Rico is that, for one, the alternatives have not made clear to them what the end repercussions of their decision is going to be, and more importantly, they were not binding consultations. That is, Congress was not forced to, whatever the people of Puerto Rico chose, to move forward on that decision.
Now, most of the people who are watching this today are people living in the United States. They're not people living in Puerto Rico. Why should the folks in the United States care about the status of Puerto Rico?
Because it is our government, their government, holding on to something that would not have been tolerated by the founding fathers.
Well, it also costs $11 billion a year, too.
Well, we have a relationship with Israel, and Israel costs money also, and that's what I'm thinking about, is that Puerto Rico should find its own self-determination. I don't think the United States is ready, the Congress or the people of the United States, to accept a Caribbean nation that will bring in 7 congresspersons plus 2 senators of color. These are, people who are not white. We are not Americans. We are Puerto Ricanos. There is a nation of Puerto Ricans that has a history. And I think that what the United States and people, especially U.S. residents, should say to their government is, resolve this situation. It's embarrassing for the U.S. government.
Luis, how do you think it will be resolved?
Well, there are some problems, and I hate to admit this as a historian and a professor. There are some problems that don't have easy solutions, and perhaps no solutions at all. I think ultimately it is going to be in the hands of Congress to push Puerto Rico to make a decision one way or the other.
We have to leave it at that, gentlemen. Thank you both for coming.
Thanks.
That's it for this edition of Fox in Depth. Right now, here's Rick Fulbaum.